So first of all, let me just explain who I am. I'm Reagan's uncle.
Hi.
I grew up in Hiram, so I am from Cache Valley. I love Cache Valley. But I currently work for the Libertas Institute, which you guys probably haven't heard of, but you've probably heard of our founder, who is Connor Boyack, who is the author of the Tuttle Twins. So if you know the Tuttle Twins, all the stuff that he teaches in the Tuttle Twins to kids, we then turn around and try and work on at the state legislature to try and pass laws that would support those. One of those laws would be the Utah Fits All, which is an education spending account. I'll get into that a little bit. I am actually also a former public school teacher and principal, and I now use MyTech High to pay to home educate my children. So there's been a lot of conversation, so anybody who's using MyTech High or Harmony is not technically a public or a homeschool student. They are technically a public school student, and that is very on purpose. Same thing with this. If this gets used by somebody, they would not be technically homeschooling, and that's because there are some people out there who are very I would call hardcore homeschoolers. They don't want the government involved in what they're doing in their home, and I understand that. And there are very strong protections for them, and we don't want to mess with those when we talk about these laws. So I'm going to get into what this is. The Utah Fits All Scholarship, kind of timeline of what it is. It can be spent on very, very similar things as what's already been shared. And then there's been some conversation about kids with IEPs. There is something very similar to this that's already set up, and you can register and use it for next school year, called the Children's First Education Fund. I'll show you that website as well. But I am their education policy analyst. I helped work to pass this. So that's who I am. First of all, we've talked about Harmony and MyTech High. Harmony, $1,800. We got about $1,600 for MyTech High to home educate our children. Utah Fits All will be $8,000 per student. Because this will be used for private school tuition, can be used for all kinds of things. In fact, I'm going to get into that. So here's what it can be used for. Tuition and fees. So that would include ballet classes. I have my son in a ninja class. I can use it in a ninja class course there. No problem. I can pay for that. So can be used for after school programs. So maybe there's down in so I live in the Ogden area. There's a business down there called Code Ninja, where you can go and you can learn the code. And so I could pay for something like that. Summer programs as well. So all those wonderful summer education camps, can pay tuition for those.
Would swim lessons count for that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So tutoring. So if you want a specific tutor, maybe it's you have children coming from Colombia and they need a Spanish teacher to help teach them English, you can pay for that specifically. Textbooks and curriculum. This is a benefit of the Utah Fits All. I can pay for the good and the beautiful. Really? I can pay for religious curriculum with this because this is not a public school. This is a scholarship program that is outside of the public school system. So students who get this would be considered scholarship recipients. They wouldn't be considered a public school student or a homeschool student or anything like that.
What would you do for that then? Like, because there's an affidavit if you're doing your clean home, like the straight home.
So the application would then cover and the reason you do the affidavit is because there's compulsory education laws that says that you have to, education has to be provided to the child, and so filling out and applying and receiving this would fulfill
covers
that compulsory education. I'm going to ask for questions B to the end if that's okay. No, that's okay, but I do want to get through that because I know there's going to be lots of questions, and this is only going to be like maybe 5 more minutes is all. So, but no, it's good. Instructional materials, so paper, ink, things like that. Software and online learning. So if I want to pay for an online class, maybe I want to learn to code through some kind of online whatever, tech and hardware. So computers, iPads, all those things are also covered. Educational supplies, and I made this different from like the instructional materials because the educational supplies would be things like microscopes and telescopes. So we had to make sure that was in there. It can also pay for exams and certifications. So my oldest child is 17, and she is currently taking classes through the local ATC down in Davis County and becoming a nail tech. So I could pay for her exam and all the equipment that would go with that through this program. So, who's eligible? All of Utah's students are eligible, but there's only going to be funding currently for about 5,000 students. And that's if they all use the $8,000. So, that is a problem. That's something we're going to work on this upcoming legislative session, but that's how much we were able to kind of get from the legislature as we were going through that. So, but all students are eligible. There is a preference given for low-income students, but that doesn't mean that other parents are not eligible, if that makes sense. So, if you're 200% of the federal poverty guidelines or below, they are given first priority. 200% to 400% are given the next priority, and then everybody else beyond that. So 400% of the federal poverty guidelines is pretty high, by the way.
I was gonna say, what is the poverty guidelines? Do you know?
I think I'd have to go in and look, but it's like
before, I think 57,000 for a family of 4 is what they're considering for the 200%.
that would probably be the federal poverty guideline, and then 200% of that would be
on this program.
on this program. So they just take whatever the guidelines are,
Yeah.
and so I would have to just go in and look at what it is, because it changes from year to year
Right.
with inflation. So
So the more kids you have, the better.
yes, and I have 5, so I haven't caught up to you, and I'm not going to be.
No, that's okay.
But-
I'm just saying that, like, you're more poverty the more kids you have, supposedly.
Yeah.
So,
Allegedly, yes.
but you're really rich. You're in heaven, so it's all.
Yes. So, so here's what's going to happen. This is not going to be available for next school year. This is a new program. You need time. It needs time to be set up. So the State Board of Education will be hiring a program manager. They have to hire that program manager by December. It is a separate organization from the State Board of Education, but the legislature said, hey, you're over education, you vet who the program manager is, things like that. And then the program manager will then set up like the website and how will reimbursements and things like that happen. And they will have applications available by March 1st, according to the law of next year, to use in the 24-25 school year. So that's kind of the next steps. So now what? This is where I, working in politics, need your guys' help. I would love, and this is a QR code, if you guys would sign up for the Utah Fits All email list, because we can then use this in the legislative process to say, hey, we have a list of 15,000 parents who have maybe 3 kids each who want to use this. Okay? And if you don't have your phone, it's just utahfitsall.com. Are you Shelly, by the way? No. Okay. I will email that website to Shelly as well. But yeah, so let me actually show you. But if you have an IEP, this very thing is already set up for children with IEPs from the Children's First Education Fund. So this is already available. We used it for my son who has speech, and it was about, I can't remember the exact amount, my wife would know, about $8,000, maybe it was $7,500, something like that, but he changed it all. I mean, we've been paying for all kinds of things, and they actually had to modify the law. That's why we had to make sure we included the things like telescopes and things like that in the law, because it got left out of the law that created this fund. But they fixed it so it will pay for all the things that we'll do for the next school year. But this is available right now. You can sign up for it right now. If you think your child does have some kind of a disability, but you don't have an IEP, you can go through, there's a process where you have what's called a multidisciplinary team. All that means is that you have like a doctor and maybe a psychologist or like a physical therapist or something. 2 people from 2 different disciplines who are like, yeah, this child has some kind of a disability. that will create an eligibility there, so you don't necessarily have to get an IEP, because IEPs really only come from the public education system. So you would have to kind of enroll and go through a very lengthy process, sometimes a 6-month process to get an IEP. If you have a child on an IEP, you know how long that can take. But this is available right now. So with that, that is the end of my presentation. I would love to answer any questions that you may have. So.
It's $8,000 per child per school year?
Yes, $8,000 per child per school year. Yes.
And that can include people that are using Harmony and MyTech, like.
So if you, no. So you would use one or the other.
Okay.
You would not be able to do both. You could actually, in the law there is a provision that you can be dual enrolled in a public school and in this program. So basically you go half-time to a public school and then you go half-time and get half of the scholarship amount. So you could do that with MyTech High. But I mean, if you got half of this $1,600, that's $800 plus the $4,000, that's $4,800 as opposed to $8,000. I would just rather do this if I'm doing it the same way. Yes.
So one thing that our family is big on is trying to do like museums and trips and things like that, experiences. And one problem that we're gonna face is gas prices and things like that. Would that cover those or just the learning experience itself?
So there is a travel amount in there, transportation amount, but that's going to be limited. There's probably going to be some rules that come around that. That's probably more about getting transportation for a child going to something like a private school.
Okay, not like a museum.
Probably not you traveling to a museum, because I want that to be a thing.
But that doesn't work all the time.
That doesn't work all the time, because you're going to get somebody who's going to be like, hey, we're going to go to Yosemite National Park in California and it costs us $1,000 for the hotel for a week's stay, right?
Right.
And then they're going to be like, that's our travel expense. And so that's where it gets a little tricky.
It's
So
a sticky spot.
yeah, it gets sticky. So more rules will come out on that. Well, okay, one of the things I forgot to talk about was, I'm going to call them the strings, right? So it's like the reporting weekly for MyTech High, the quarterly portfolio for Harmony. Very similar will be available. So you can either take an end of year assessment every year and do that as part of what you're doing. Or you can do a portfolio. You have a menu of options. So you can take the state test, you can take nationally norm reference tests, so think ACT, SAT, or you can do a portfolio option. I'm not sure if the portfolio will be once a quarter or if it'll be like beginning of year, end of year. I don't know exactly what that will be. That will come from the program manager. They'll decide that. It makes sense to do it quarterly to me, but I don't know. Yes?
Are you, in the last few minutes, are you talking about the Children's First Education or the scholarship that's coming up?
I'm talking about the Utah Fits All.
Okay.
So
Okay.
the Children's First Education Fund is funded differently.
Okay.
It is basically people donate to it, and the state says if you donate to this, your tax burden's dropped dollar for dollar. And so they actually, like, I don't have to do any assessments with this. Like, I don't have to do anything as far as that goes, except get reimbursements. And so, and to get reimbursements, if you've ever used PayPal, it's going to be very similar, where they'll have some kind of a digital wallet that you'll use to pay for it. So,
Can you stack that with Harmony too?
you can. Oh, I don't know if you can start this one with Harmony. I don't think so. It's kind of your one or the other. So, but it can be used for very similar things to this. So, yes. And then over here.
For the Utah Fits All,
Mhm.
so you said if they all use the 8,000, so it's gonna be like, how it's gonna be the money, like checks, or how you're gonna find if they're using it all or not?
So you'll have what's called a digital wallet set up. That'll be like, if you're familiar with PayPal, it will pay for that, but you'll have just an $8,000 account. And so you'll get some vendors that come online. So who was trying to get like their local somebody online? Reagan was. You'll get they'll go online and then they'll just send money directly to them, like as a bank transfer or whatever. That's how they'll pay. But there will be a reimbursement process if it's something that's kind of a one-time whatever purchase from I went to Best Buy and bought something. Maybe they're not a vendor yet or whatever.
And you need to apply each year, or once you get in the first year, you like.
So you apply once, and once you're in, you're in. But you would have to, like, they'd send you some kind of an email and be like, do you intend to continue using this next year?
Oh.
That way they know.
But you are in.
But you're in.
Okay.
Yeah, once you're in, you're in.
You said something about it not being here next year, or it would be different next
So
year?
Utah Fits All will not be available. This is available right now. I use it this year for my child who has speech
Okay.
needs. But they've modified this one, made it better for next school year.
Okay, so
So.
you're not talking about Utah Fits All. It'll be around. from
Utah Fits All will be the 24-25 school year.
there. Okay.
So
Kind of a two-part question.
Yes.
How competitive are they expecting it to be to get into the program?
that's a great question. I don't know. I do expect that it will get maxed out.
Okay,
But we do plan to try and up that amount
okay.
before it goes into effect for the 24-25 school year. And just politically, you do not have to unenroll from like My Tech High. There's kind of been this rumor going around that you can't apply for this while you're still enrolled with My Tech High. You can, and then once you get it, you would just drop out of My Tech High. So, just like you would a public school. So, yes?
Do we know how many kids are being homeschooled in Utah or using the Harmon?
What's the competition rate?
Last I checked, there's probably, My Tech High is the bigger one. I would say there's probably about 12,000 students who are using My Tech High. Sorry, the binky's throwing me off. I thought you had it turned around. I think Harmony's around 6,000 students. There's about, and this is where it gets hard because I call myself a homeschooler even though I use My Tech High.
Yeah.
So the best we can guess, and this is kind of a nice thing. It's a feature, not a bug, but it's hard to track homeschool students in Utah. And that's we estimate about 16,000 homeschool students in Utah, and there's probably like 25 to 30,000 private school students. But I don't know how much of that, the Venn diagram of My Tech High, Harmony overlap. So
It's still a lot.
that's still a lot.
lot more than
Yeah.
5,000.
Yes, a lot more than 5,000.
So you had mentioned,
Yeah.
and it sounds like there's almost a breakdown with this money, is that right then? For like how you spend it, like, is there a certain allotment for language arts, or?
Nope.
It's just one lump sum? and
It's
that's
one lump
literally the
sum.
way it is?
You get to choose how that gets spent.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So, politically speaking, would it be a good idea for us to all apply, because then there's a huge, influx of
Yes,
it,
that is what I hope.
So,
But we
Yes.
can't apply till next March.
You can't apply till next March,
Better mark our calendar.
but overwhelming the number that we have is great politically. So I'll just put it out there. That is wonderful. That's
So
a
it's okay
great.
if there's competition, so
That-
that everybody
absolutely.
knows, so that
Absolutely,
everybody
yeah. Yes.
I was
wondering, are you gonna have a reporting system, like what you're doing each week versus like?
So there is it's called an assessment piece. So there won't be like the weekly reporting with My Tech High, but you will have to choose at the end of the year if you're going to do the state level assessments or the national norm reference assessments or a portfolio. So you'll have to decide what that looks like. You'll probably select that before you begin the school year. Because if I'm doing the portfolio, I'd rather know that in September when I'm starting school with my kids, like a new school year, so I can gather up like the pictures of whatever my kids are doing.
Do you know how extensive that portfolio is gonna be?
don't. I bet it will be similar to Harmony. That didn't look too bad. Who was doing Harmony? Who was showing the Harmony? Like that looked way easier than what I thought yeah. So that looks so much easier than what I thought.
10 minutes.
It would be.
10 minutes. So for the supplies, is that laptops?
Yep.
Lego sets, does that count?
Yep.
Because my kids aren't doing it if they don't do Lego sets.
So yeah. Yeah. So everything that you've been able to pay for with Harmony and My Tech High will be available with this.
So so I've got a question. Let's say that they give me $8,000 per child, and I don't think I could technically use all of that as a homeschooler. Like, it would just be, like, it's an insane amount
That's
of
a lot.
money,
Yeah.
right? So I get to the end of the year and I still have a bunch of money. Does it just go back into the fund, like general fund for next year, so that they can fund more people?
Yes.
Okay.
That's my. I'll have to go back and look at the rule on that one specifically. I'm not positive on that, but yeah, it will go back into the fund.
Because like for me, I'm like, I would take half of that.
Right.
Like me and you will get together and we'll take like just half of it, and that way more people can get it. Because that's like such like I understand because it's for private schools, but as a homeschooler,
Yeah.
$8,000 per kid, and you've got
Per
multiple
year
kids.
it
That's
is.
a lot of money.
It is absolutely. If you have a kid with special needs, it
not
goes
nearly as much
away
money.
quite quickly. Yeah.
No, I totally get that.
I mean, we're for even speech therapy, we're going to a actual speech therapist in person, and it's $75 a pop, and that's every week, and so that becomes expensive, which is why it is so much too.
Yeah, no, I get that, but like me, like I'm just like this. No, like I don't need anything extra.
Yeah.
I have a lot of extra money.
Lots of features.
Yeah. Even then though, like that's like $24,000 for me. Like I just can't imagine spending that much money on.
Yeah, it gets to be a lot. As now I have high school kids, a lot of the stuff that they want to do does get more expensive. So, like the ATC stuff I was talking about, like we're gonna have my daughter, like really my 14-year-old really get into writing, and so like high school level writing, finding somebody online, like that's gonna be pretty expensive, right? And so it kind of makes it will be helpful for those things. Elementary, it's not gonna be as expensive to do that because they're elementary.
Because I have a third grader who just wants to build Legos.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Connect.
I just want to see it.
You can pay for sports, right?
Say that again.
You can pay for sports.
It could pay for
piano
like.
lessons and-
What about sports gear, since one of that
That's what.
Does Harmony pay for the sports gear?
Harmony doesn't do a very good job of that, right?
I've never tried with sports gear because we only do Legos. Sorry.
Yeah, so if you have like a class or a curriculum that's requiring those things, I would think that it would pay for that, but I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Like martial
because
arts
I have
requires
class
phobias
for my tech high
and
stuff. Like I have my daughter in soccer and she took like all of them. So we got a bunch of like a trampoline and a bunch of other exercise equipment, and that's all going to be covered with her PE class.
So people talk about like a third grader not needing as much as like a high schooler. Will there be kind of like preference for high school?
It's not done that way, so it's like $8,000 per child. Yeah, so it.
And then tier me by age.
Yeah, they just said $8,000.
The children first.
The Children's First is available right now, and it's for children with disabilities.
And their siblings, right?
Their siblings if they are attending a private
There
school.
you go.
Okay.
So their siblings, it's if they're attending a private school together.
With special needs.
Yeah. Absolutely.
What about?
All right. I think that concludes everything. I do have business cards if anybody would like a business card. You come up with questions. that comes about. And so I learned a lot about Harmony. I didn't know a lot about Harmony, but I've used My Tech High. This is my second year, so I'm still a newbie too. But I researched a lot, and I know the guy who started My Tech High because I've worked with him a lot on different projects. And so if you have questions, I would love to be just a resource for you guys. So I do have business cards. I can pass them out. Yeah. So anyway, but thank you for letting me come up. I appreciate it. It's always fun to come back up again.